With 7.3 million in live tournament earnings, Canada's Daniel Dvoress is one of the most consistent performers in the high-stakes circuit. And today on this episode of I Am High Stakes Poker, we find out what the values are that drive his life, where he stands on the issue of meaning and purpose, and so much more. How's life, Daniel?
Life is good.
So this is your first time in Korea, right?
Yeah, first time in Korea. I regret not coming last time, but good start.
And
kinda.
Is this your first Triton series?
No, I played the Triton in Macau. I believe that was my only one before this one.
And what's your thoughts on the whole setup and everything that you're experiencing?
I'll definitely be coming back. I'm already looking forward to Montenegro.
Montenegro is a fantastic place.
I mean, unless some like Black Swan event happens, I'm there. So.
Oh, brilliant! I'm on the way over it. It's a long way to get here. That's one of the only things, but
yeah,
it does give you a chance to like read a lot. And I read a book called Feck Perfunction. I got to get that right. It's an artist called James Victory, and it's about creativity. And he says that, you know, some of us, we get ourselves in a rut and we don't think we're creative, and yet we really were born to be the most amazing creative creatures. How was you creative when you was a child?
I don't think I was creative at all. Actually, I think the environment that I was brought up in was very structured. And I think I just kind of did what I was supposed to do. And what I was supposed to do, like when I was a little kid, was just what my parents told me to do. And I was actually homeschooled until I was 8, until I moved to Canada. But even then, it was still pretty structured, I think. So I don't think there was a big emphasis on creativity in my family. But I could also be misremembering. Like, memories just get so convoluted over the years, so who knows? But I don't remember my childhood being particularly creative.
When you say structured, I mean, are you saying strict?
Yeah, pretty strict. I just think that things that were, let's say, artistic in nature, which I think is mostly the first thing you think of when you think creativity, were not the first things to be encouraged.
And what about when you was just alone though in your bedroom? I mean, what were the type of things that you played around with?
I honestly, I don't really remember. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, like, how do you think it's that useful, I guess, to think like what you wanted to be when you were a kid?
I think what Victoria's saying in his book is, if we lose where we are in terms of meaning and purpose, then a good way of trying to get back on track is to remember what we loved when we was a child. So I think that's where he's coming from. Yeah,
I'm just thinking, I'm sure at some point I was like, oh, I didn't play hockey as a kid, but if I did, I'm sure I would have been like, hey, I want to be a hockey player. Which wouldn't be particularly useful. I probably had a phase where I wanted to be a doctor or something. I don't think that would be very useful at this point in time either.
You said that you was homeschooled for a period of time. That's something that I considered with my daughter as well, just for fear of education, you know, thinking we could do a better job. And one of the things that I always worried about was how that would affect my daughter from a social aspect. I mean, what was it like for you being homeschooled? Can you remember?
So for me, I was homeschooled, like when I was homeschooled, this was in Russia. So my family moved to Canada when I was 8. And my understanding of it was we didn't live in a particularly good neighborhood, or at least the school that I would have had to go to wasn't very good. So my parents decided to homeschool me instead. And then when I came to Canada, I just started school in grade 3. And it was definitely, like, that year was like a very bad year in my life, for sure. Just because getting social after not being social for so long, and just not being exposed to what I think kids are naturally exposed to when they're socializing with a lot of other kids. I think that kind of hurt me a little bit. But also at the same time, I don't know if it's the homeschooling that did that, or just like my lack of English when I came to Canada. Like there's so many variables, right? So I'm sure things compounded. But yeah, I would, like based on a sample of one, I would not recommend you homeschool your kids.
I remember moving from England to Wales when I was 10 and hating my parents for it because I had an English accent and everybody was, well, you're talking about a different language. I mean, it must have been incredibly tough for you.
Yeah, it wasn't, the first little bit wasn't great, but you learn fast as a kid. So I think after like a year or year and a half, I was fluent enough where it wasn't even a thing.
Is there anything around your childhood that you really identify with today as an adult? So, for example, me moving from Wales to England and having to deal with all that adversity turns me into like a man with, I suffer from little man syndrome sometimes now I'm older, trying to overprotect myself.
Yeah, I definitely went through some adversity as a child and also later in my, I guess, late teen years. And I think that kind of, that's helped me, if anything, nowadays. And I think also my parents just encouraged like very hard work and grit with me when I was really young. And I think that's still with me today to a very large extent.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we look back on our childhood and my parents were the same. It was like hard work, and then because of all that all the time, there's kind of like no creativity, no love, or not as much love as you wanted. And then when you're older, though, the stuff that you didn't appreciate when you were younger actually turns into a real positive and a real strength.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember being, I mean, not a little kid, but before I was a teenager, kind of being told that I wasn't like particularly talented, but I could still succeed at whatever if I just worked really hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of stuck with me through to this day.
When did you realize that poker was going to be an outlet for you in terms of, exploring creativity and just like being a livelihood, I guess?
I think it was a pretty slow progression. So I started playing, I think it was last year of high school. And then I quit for a little bit because my parents found out and made me quit. And then I went to university, kind of just did like the normal thing that you're supposed to do. You go to school, you study. Then I had no money and student loans, and so I kind of like semi-secretly started playing poker again. And started doing very well eventually, not immediately. And I think after 2 or 3 years of that, when I gradually was just getting better and better, that's when I started to realize it's something that I want to stick with.
You said then that you went to university, and I'm paraphrasing it, but you said something like, and I did the things that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Was you acutely aware that there was a blueprint of life that you were following, and how did you feel about that?
I wasn't, and I really wish I was. Like for me, I think going to university for me in the first place was, well, I'm not sure if going to first year was a mistake, but after a couple of years, I think deep inside, like I just knew it wasn't for me. Nothing, like the academic system didn't, I mean, some aspects of it were fine, but what I was doing didn't interest me that much. But I just didn't really realize that there was any other way.
Yeah.
I just kind of assumed, oh yeah, well, school's supposed to suck, but it's what you're supposed to do. And I think that's kind of how I was raised, and I didn't even, there was none of this kind of like stepping back, kind of looking at yourself from the outside and being like, hey, this is what's going on. You actually have choices. You're following this blueprint where you're not even making decisions. I was just not aware of that at all. I was just like, yes, I am supposed to do this. I'm supposed to see this through, and then we'll see what happens.
I give it the cute name, the zombification of life. It's like
yeah.
And I was 35 when I turned around and thought, oh, hang on a minute, I can really think about what's going on here. Was there a moment in your life when your thinking started changing about the world, or any influences, or did it just come with maturity?
I think it just came gradually with maturity. I think, yeah, maturity and just getting to meet different people with different perspectives, which I think I mostly got to do through poker. And once I met a lot of people that had very different perspectives that I respected a lot, and so I could, really trust their opinion and their outlook on life. That's when I realized, hey, there's other ways to go about life.
There's another great book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he does like an annual review on his values, and there's 3 questions that he asks himself every year. I'll ask those questions to you. And the first one is, what are the core values that drive your life and work?
Core values. Definitely being honest and integrity. And yeah, I think being competitive, is that a value?
I think
but
so,
like
yeah.
for me, that's a really big driving force. Being very competitive, seeking competitive environments, and pushing myself to the extreme. Not just with poker, but with other things I do as well.
They say that hidden within every strength is a weakness, and vice versa. With your competitive edge, where has that turned up in your life in a negative sense?
Well, with my outlook on how I should be very competitive and just pushing myself to the extreme, certainly a lot of the time I do a little bit too much of that and kind of don't know when to stop, and have a tendency to burn out more often than I should probably.
I interviewed Tom Dwan a couple of days ago, and as you probably know, it's not the easiest thing to bag in the world. And after I'd done it, I felt really disappointed in myself that I didn't do a good enough job, And there was nothing I could do about it, but I kept lamenting over and over and over about it. How do you stand with that kind of thing, with your competitive edge? Do you beat yourself up?
I don't beat myself up, no. Yeah, definitely not. I don't think I have. I mean, I used to have that to a large extent, and then I think over time with maturity, I not just I understood that it's not useful, but I really internalized it. And I think like those are 2 very different things: understanding something and just feeling it and internalizing it. And yeah, I think after I was like 24, 25, I finally like really internalized that, and I was like, hey, like that's not useful. And yeah, I kind of stopped doing that. Well,
and again, the poker, the career you chose really helps in that regard as well, because when I was interviewing Eric Seidel, he was saying that these things that you can't control, like what's the point of even worrying about them,
Yeah, I mean, poker definitely trains you with that, because you can control your decisions, but you can't control the situation, you can't control the cards that come out, you can't control a lot of other things. And so you get to train yourself to have this sort of like aloof attitude to how much control you really have, and to be able to focus on only the things that you can control.
And question 2 of Clear's like little annual review was, how are you living and working with integrity right now?
I think integrity in poker is just being, I guess, like just your rep in poker matters a lot, right? I think everyone knows that. And I think having integrity, being honest, following through on what you say, and kind of just being a man of your word goes a long way. And yeah, I mean, I feel that I do that. I feel that the people that I've surrounded myself with in poker do that as well.
Who are those people?
I mean, it's a pretty long list, and I don't want to name some people and not others.
Leave others out. Yeah, I know. I totally get it. How can you set a higher standard in the future?
For myself?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm actually pretty happy with where I'm at now, just in terms of my standards for myself. So I think now I'm in I'm sort of in the stage of tweaking little things, but there's not like a big thing that I need to change. So I think the things that I need to improve on are sort of like on the micro level now.
Right, you're nailing it. You're nailing life, Daniel.
So sometimes it feels like that. Other days, not as much, right?
When I was in my mid-30s, and I told you I woke up a little bit and realized that I was just a zombie, living everybody else's life. I remember doing this deep exploration about like what meaning and purpose was to me, and I really struggled for the longest time, and I was, again, beating myself up because I couldn't figure it out. And a coach said to me, just make a list of all the things that you love doing in life and see what it tells you. What would that list look like to you?
So for me, I mean, again, being competitive would be very high up on the list. Very high up on the list would also be helping people. I feel like, I mean, it's kind of like with my coaching and the videos that I make, I don't necessarily think that it's even like a plus EV thing that I'm doing. But it gives me pleasure to do it, and yeah, it gives me purpose, because yeah, I just like it's rewarding to see people that you care about improve. So I feel like that's a driving force as well.
What does that tell you about what your purpose is right now? I mean, you know, you said there a little bit about being competitive, helping other people out, creating quality products for them. So what is it, your purpose today, do you think? Like, why do you play poker? Why do you exist? I know it's like a big question to think about. But.
Yeah, that's a big question, especially for a poker player where every day is so different, every week's so different. The opportunities that you have are so different. So yeah, I think like my day-to-day goals can just be so different, right? Like my goals for every day this trip was to just play the best poker that I could. That was my purpose, to be competitive, to play the best poker that I can, and I wasn't thinking about anything else. Now as I'm going to be flying home, I'll probably be thinking, all right, like that sort of 2 weeks of, or whatever it was, of grinding are over. So you kind of take a step back. All right, like what am I going to be doing for the next week or so? And that's where, my coaching will come in. So my purpose for a few days after I come back will be to help students, to record a video, whatever. So I think that, I guess it's just like a very broad question that's hard to answer. In terms of like globally, what my purpose is, that's a tough one.
It's interesting because like sitting opposite people like you, I say people like you, like high stakes poker players, and we've done like 20 to 30 of these interviews, you start to see trends. And one of the trends is there really is no bigger picture, or maybe there is, but it's not as important as focusing on the now. And I'm interested in whether that is because of pure love of the game, so I don't need to think about anything else because I love this game, or the game demands that laser-like focus for you to be good.
For me, it's definitely the pure love of the game. I enjoy the competition that comes with poker. It's also, I feel like the environment that I do most of my poker playing in kind of caters to that. Like within poker, I could be doing other things other than like traveling and playing high stakes tournaments. I'm sure I could find other ways that would be equal, maybe even better, like financially, compared to kind of traveling to all of these stops. But I choose this because, it caters to me being competitive. And that's kind of, I love this aspect of poker. I love the game, and that's kind of enough for me.
I haven't watched a poker training video for a very long time, for like many, many years. But I always used to think to myself, it's very good, they're very good, like run it once, etc., etc. I think it was Blue Fire Poker back in my day, where Phil Golfone used to be on. Very, very good technically. But to be a high stakes poker player, it has to be more than just technical knowledge of the game, right? Mm-hmm. There's so many different ways in life that you need to excel. If we were to create a high stakes poker school and you was like, leading the curriculum, what are the 2 or 3 things you think that people should be focusing on if they want to move from the mid stakes to the higher stakes in the game?
So I think if someone wants to move from mid stakes to high stakes, like that would be a very long curriculum. Like there's just like no silver bullet solution to playing it at the elite level. You have to do a lot of things, a lot of little things consistently every day, a lot. You have to put in a lot of deliberate practice for a lot of hours. So yeah, really tough one to answer. I think as far as the technical game goes, it's a lot of it is consistently practicing deliberately and looking at spots that you're not very good at. I think that a lot of poker players that are kind of stuck at mid stakes, what they tend to do is they just play a lot, and they play every day for like 8 hours and then they stop, and then they go to bed, they do whatever, they wake up, they play another 8 hours. And over a year, if you do that, you're guaranteed to just get worse than the people that you're competing against. Why would you get better if you're doing the exact same thing every day?
Yeah.
You have to be deliberately improving on the things that you're not good at. So that's in terms of kind of like the technical aspect of the game. In terms of the mental mindset, there's kind of I guess like a micro aspect to it and a macro aspect to it. As far as like, your mindset goes, the micro aspect would be like, am I doing the simple things right today? I woke up, did I meditate? Did I take some time to think about my long-term goals? After the session, did I write down hands I want to review? Just like simple things that are the no skill things that you have to do. And then like the macro level, I think that's a lot about creating an environment for yourself where you can excel. Did I answer your question?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, you did.
It's just like, I can't think of like a curriculum for moving from mid stakes to high stakes that would encompass everything. Because there's just so many aspects.
I get that. And then I guess the question comes lightly from my lack of experience of competing at a high level. It is the constant search for that silver bullet in any, and it's not just in poker, it's any, how did you get so famous? Tell me how you did it type of thing, But you look good, like, you've not got an ounce of fat on you. How important is getting yourself ship shape as well in order to compete against these guys?
So personally, I think it's very important. There's also poker players that aren't very fit and like they do fine. But if you take a look at kind of like the global trend, if you rewatch videos from like the mid 2000s, let's say, and you just look at like the average poker player that's at the table, or like you just look at the crowd that's kind of there, I think you see a lot of people that look pretty unhealthy, pretty overweight, and now if you walk by a high stakes poker table, it's a bunch of guys that are ripped and then like a bunch of other guys that are in very good shape. So I think that there's 2 things. First of all, I think that there's a direct impact of how healthy you are physically and how well you can perform mentally. And then I think there's a correlational thing where if someone has the personality and the skill set to get really good at poker, they also just transfer that to fitness and just get really good at fitness too. Because I think kind of the structure or like the framework to getting good at anything is always going to be the same. So like it's no wonder that someone that excels in one thing is also bound to excel in another.
Yeah, it's like having more of an holistic picture of like not I want to be good at poker or I want to be a good meditator. It's I want to live a very solid, healthy life.
Right. Like
and then everything comes under that.
Yeah, it's just a matter of having the mindset of I want to make the optimal decision for every decision that I make. be it at the poker table or be it like, hey, am I going to eat that or like, should I not?
When does imposter syndrome ever creep into your life?
What's imposter syndrome? I mean, I've heard the term before, but
I guess from your perspective, it would be sitting down, looking around the poker table and saying, I don't belong here. Or have you ever felt like that? Or, you might not do now, but...
No, I don't think I've ever felt like that at a poker table.
That's a good thing. So you're very
I suppose it's a good thing, yeah.
Yeah, you're very confident then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, there's definitely been moments where I knew I wasn't necessarily the best poker player at the table. Like, kind of as I was coming up in poker, I think I was good at avoiding spots where I wasn't winning. So yeah, I think I was just smart about selecting what I play and when I play. And because of that, I never experienced that.
And what are your ambitions in life? So, if we believe there's only one life here, it's very fleeting, it goes very quick. The older we get, it goes quicker and quicker. What are the type of things you want to tick off a so-called list in your life?
That's a tough question. Right now, I just genuinely love what I'm doing so much that, like, if you asked me, like, hey, do you want to be doing this at 50? I'd be like, hell yeah, like, for sure. Maybe to a lesser extent, maybe I'd do like a few less stops a year, but I'd still want to be doing some variant of this where I'm constantly challenging myself, competing at the highest level. In terms of my ambitions, I think gradually, poker is going to change. It's going to be very different in 5 years. Who knows if it'll even be around, or like what form it will be around
as it is today, yeah.
In like 10 or 20. And yeah, I feel like as things start to change, I'll gradually adjust my goals. But right now there isn't like a thing where I'm just like, yeah, at 40, I want to do this, or at 50, I want to retire. I think any changes that will happen in my life will happen gradually with just kind of slow, gradual decision making.
And finally, how does poker make you feel?
How does poker make me feel? It depends how it's going, I guess.
So I guess across the spectrum, it can make you feel lots of different emotions, right?
Yeah. I think the fact that I can do that is nothing special about poker. It's just, again, the fact that it's such a competitive environment. Like, I think if you asked like a hockey player, hey, how does hockey make you feel? Well, overall amazing, because I'm sure, like they picked that career. But when you lose a game, I'm sure it feels awful and it feels like you failed and you start questioning yourself. And there's times like that in poker too. And then sometimes things are going well and it's the opposite and it's great. So globally, poker makes me feel great. On a more micro level, day to day, it really depends how happy I am with the decisions that I made that day.
I like it. Daniel, thanks very much for joining us on I Am High Stakes Poker. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Dvoress. I am High Stakes Poker.